this is Sydney. So right now I'm on camera as I actually have been feeling called to share a lot of messages for the past 3 days, but for some reason I was waiting for today, I guess. I felt called to be on camera, in front of camera actually, so I don't know what may come out because every day I'm processing literally immense amount of information all the time, waking hours, in my sleep, just 24/7. So there are some more intense days and less relaxed days, but overall it's kind of 24/7 because that's what I signed up to do on a soul level since 2018. So there were a lot of things, but I don't remember everything right now, and I do not prepare, oh, this is what I'm gonna say. Like, I don't list up things, so I tap into my intuition. So I'm gonna let my intuition come through, and then share whatever that may come that I believe is in divine timing, under divine guidance. So take however resonates for you, whatever resonates for you, and leave what doesn't. So for the past week, message of parallel timelines have been coming up very heavily. The message in regards to that was that we need to clear out parallel timelines. I don't know how we can do that, but what is coming is, as we are moving to our highest timeline, so-called, it's affecting every other timelines, basically. So about a week ago or so, they gave me the information about JF Kennedy. So JF Kennedy's energy has been coming through since, I believe, 2024, very heavily and very consistently. JF Kennedy, and for a while his son, who died early, JF Kennedy Jr., what's his name, like, and he was married to this, was it a model, or was it a Calvin Klein publicist or something like that, and they were like young, good looking, and they were like everywhere. And then he got killed on he was driving his own like private airplane or something like that with his wife then and wife's sister, and they all died. And what came recently was that wasn't an accident, was what came. So I don't know what that means. It wasn't an accident, someone targeted them and it was intentional. So I don't know what that means and how it's relating to John F. Kennedy, and probably okay, what is coming is they knew something that they're not supposed to know, basically. So I don't know what it is. I don't know what they did with it. Anyways, they were under a lot of the word that is coming is severe surveillance from government, and the word that is coming is FBI for some reason. I don't know the connection, I don't know the history, but I'm just sharing whatever that is coming. Okay, so everything isn't tied to the extraterrestrial disclosure that is planning to happen. okay? Because as I mentioned in my previous videos, it's going to bring a lot of chaos, confusion, and it's going to be very, people are going to be shocked. And they gave me the information suddenly that the reason why JFK died was because in another parallel timeline he shared the information that about the extraterrestrials' existence. And back then the conscious level of consciousness and energy of Gaia was a lot denser, and of course people were not ready for it, you know what I mean? So it created a lot of chaos, and people reacting really aggressively, negatively, violently, stuff like that, like something of that nature. It was not taken well. And so I believe he died in 63 or something like that. But in parallel timeline, he disclosed it in 68. So he had to die in 63 was the information I received. And that's why it was, that information was given to me because my source Gaia and my spirit team wanted to have me understand how the parallel timelines can impact other timelines, because we are creating constant timelines with our thoughts and intentions and stuff like that. So by the way, I'm not going to go into like details how these things are working. I'm just going to just share the information. So what's his name? Martin Luther King died in 68 or something like that. I don't know. That's what I received. Because of the impact of that chaotic energy from the parallel timelines of JFK disclosing about the extraterrestrial existence in 26 in another parallel timeline that was affecting other timeline of the 1968. And so Robert Kennedy and Martin Luther King died that year or something like that. So that was the relation. So it was the how much of that energy can impact other timelines as well. And I've been sharing about clearing our parallel timelines and concerns about that quite a few times in my previous videos over the, I believe over the past 16 to, I don't know if it's 24 months or something like that. But that started to come through to me from Source and Gaia and my spirit team at the time. And so this is like becoming really serious because it's going to really affect, because we're talking about also like the World War III timeline and everything, and they had me share this before many months ago, right, in my Ascension update videos from time to time, that there are a lot of other possibilities existing right now. Also, as the AI is developing and we are more in the air energy, air dominant energy at this time in major planets, and also like we entered Pluto in Aquarius. So everything is going to accelerate, especially with tech and AI and all of that. So that timeline, and I constantly mention this as I'm guided by Source and Gaia, especially. So as you move to highest timelines, okay, what is coming? Okay, as individuals align with their highest timelines, meaning personal ascension or individual ascension, or however it resonates for you. When you align with that highest timeline, and that timeline is kind of represents your level of consciousness. So what came was individuals, especially the 144,000s who have been doing the work and who hold certain DNA and frequencies. We just recently embodied the 6D consciousness. So if you've been seeing a lot of bees and hexagonal and all this so that was the sign. So they came to me for the very first time when I was in Athens in I believe, was it like June or like summertime in 2023. And I didn't even know back then. I took a photo thinking that it was looking like a grape, but as I saw that recently once again, everything is divinely guided. Nothing is random, even though it appears random, right? Suddenly I got curious and I kind of like zoomed in on it, and it was hexagonal with some kind of formula that was written on a store glass that was closed. And that was the beginning that we started on this journey. And then when I was in Hanoi, Vietnam, I can't remember which year, I believe it's 2025. It started to come really heavily, very consistently, and then through Hawaii and all my, like throughout 2025 and 26. So that energy has been carried out. And what I received a few months ago from the angelic realm was the information that at that point, the Gaia's frequency has risen to a level where we are now having the access, like the individuals in the human vessel has the capacity to align with the 7D consciousness on Earth at this time, which is like for the first time on Earth. So that's why Ascension is the word that is coming is remarkable experience at this time, and that's why you are here probably, if you resonate with all these things without questioning, or you already know what I'm talking about, that it may be for you, especially for this video's message is what is coming for me to share. So right now, what I'm hearing right now is that most of the highest individuals have embodied is up to 60 consciousness. So the past 6 to 7 months, about 7-8 months, it started to heavily affect the third eye, the crown, all this like upper chakras, like throat, third eye, and crown. And I share a lot of the ascension symptoms and what it's about during the time, from time to time, whenever it came. And that was the removing was it the 6th or 7th veil in our third eye, and it's opening up whole other abilities in our third eye. So that was in relation to this embodying the 6D consciousness. and the crown chakra. So number 144, 108, 114. If you've been seeing these numbers very consistently, very heavily for the past 8 months, it's likely that you embodied the 60 consciousness is what is coming. That means you can see through things a lot readily and more deeply, easily. Basically, you can read their thoughts. You can tune into the frequency of their intentions and stuff like that. The unspoken, right? They think they're hiding themselves, but they're not. When they're with you, when you have opened these things up and expanded or activated, however you resonate with these terms, right? It comes very naturally, and you have embodied this power because you're not the source Gaia. You're not gonna use this to harm anyone. You're not gonna use this to manipulate or for personal power or any of this. Basically, you are to embody this as a pioneer group to showcase what is possible for other individuals to achieve at this time on Earth, on a frequency wise and the ability wise. That's the potential, the seed of the potential that everyone has. And I continue to share that as these groups are showcasing more of these things, it's going to separate, and that's going to act as separating the earth, the old earth and the new earth, so called, meaning the people who are in low vibration staying here, people who are rising their vibration, because right now we are in the mud. The word mud is coming. It's chaotic. I keep mentioning this in every single video, I believe. It's going to bring a lot of chaos because this group is rising up, and it's going to trigger the hell out of this other group because everyone is embodying duality consciousness very heavily in this group. So they're going to operate on superiority, inferiority, punishment, and reward. That's based on judgment. So this is going to threaten, or they're going to feel threatened on a subconscious level. If they're not aware, they're going to start to react, meaning they're going to start to lash out or hate or blame or wish ill upon these people or certain people they feel threatened by, because they feel on a subconscious level they're behind, they're inferior, and they're still in their ego. So the ego doesn't like to feel inferior because it is scared that it's going to be punished and they're going to be demolished, executed, basically. So they start criticizing these people heavily because the basis of criticism is fear. Because when you are criticizing people, the ego is in an illusory place where they feel like they're higher, like God, judging other people of the morality of right doing and wrong doing. You see? So that's how all this conditioning is working right now. So they're very heavy in that energy unless they're aware of these things and they're willing to face their shadow, meaning that's why I share these little videos, that when you are feeling hateful or when you are directing your anger towards someone or doing this or judging someone and judging something or even judging yourself, being aware is the key to liberating yourself from these conditionings and duality consciousness and rise up to the ascension or join the forces. And I keep mentioning that it's not too late, but they think that it's too late on a subconscious level if it's not conscious. So subconsciously they're like, I can't go there anyway, so I'm just gonna continue to hate on them and go into ego, because it makes them feel like they're superior in that moment, which is an illusion. This is all created in the mind. So that's why there's a lot of chaotic energies, a lot of things coming up, all systems throughout society. The structural changes are going to really take place, which I shared in the previous video as well. And just today I received the information, no, yesterday I received the information about the formation of the Pluto, Uranus, and what is it? Pluto, Uranus, was it Saturn, like all these major planets. They're all going to be in 4 degrees. Also all in air signs, Gemini, Aquarius, Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto. Neptune, I believe, in Aries. So this formation is very rare, and it's going to bring a lot of old structural identities to crumble down. So on an individual level, a lot of individual identities that one used to identify with or live as, meaning all the belief systems about the world, about how you perceive yourself, but all the belief systems that's rooted in fear, lack, limitation, basically, that's conditioned from society and also conditioned from your family, direct family members, like your parents, because they're not healed, basically. So they also had me look at all these how these karmic patterns are handed down from one generation to the next, so they want me to share this little, so they had me see this little boy. All of a sudden they popped up. It's a Korean family, so I guess the mother is like showing his son and stuff like that. And they had me see like a few videos of him. He was preschool, but like 6 or 7, and okay, so that's kind of Korean age, so like 5 or 6, like around that age, international age. So so in one of the videos, he was with his mother, and they were in bed, and her mom was filming him, and he was kind of acting. He was putting on an act, telling his mom, because he wanted attention, that I'm going to leave. And the mother asked him, where are you going to live? Like, what do you mean living? Like, where are you leaving? And the boy was like, I'm going to leave. Like, he's acting like, like something's not, he's not happy, sad, not like a little bit sad, but in a very like humorous way, like, and he was playing in a way, he was performing. And the mother started to play, and then she asked him, where are you going? It's like, I'm leaving I'm leaving dad, and I don't like blah blah blah, or something like that. He said, like, so he's kind of expressing, and he did that to attract attention, and it's sort of emotional manipulation, right? To withdraw, like draw reaction from the mom, and the mom knew what he was doing, and so she said, well, if you want to leave the house, leave the home. And in that moment, the boy suddenly switched because he felt threatened in that moment. Because in the mom, in a like kind of a little dial, like in a comment, she knew what the son was doing, so I told him to just leave. And that's kind of the dynamic. And everybody thinks, like in the comment, oh, your boy is so cute, and they think this is normal, but this is very toxic, normalized toxic patterns that we repeat over and over. Meaning the mother is playing power struggle with his son because she knew that his intention was to draw her attention, and he wanted that, oh no, we want you, and he wanted to feel like, the mother, he's wanted. Basically wanted to feel loved for whatever reason, right? And the mother knew that, and she started to manipulate him by playing the power struggle of the inferior superior. And so instead of reading her son's emotional needs and asking, why do you say these things, and then what do you mean, and start to make him feel safe to really share his emotions, instead of doing that, so he can learn to communicate his emotions in a direct manner, not in that sense to draw reaction from her mom. And usually I can see that he was conditioned to do that because you can see that if his mom was reacting that way, he's been conditioned that way since his birth. So he immediately said, no, like I love you, mom, and he immediately switched to pleasing mode. Now she's in a superior position, and the boy started to please out of fear of being abandoned. So that's the dynamic, like just a kind of a very simple that we notice, or we think it's kind of normal and cute. Another one, and then they had me see these other videos, and in other one, his mom came home from work and she got a haircut, and then in the video she asked his son, so what do you think about my haircut? Do you like it? And do you like it? And I think she cut it short or something like that. It's like, yeah, I like it. And then and she started to ask, did you like the long hair before or this one before? And he answered honestly, I like the longer one, before. But that's what he really felt. But the mom didn't like that answer because she was seeking validation from her son, which is usually happens a lot, that the parents are mostly holding a lot of traumas, unhealed wounds, so they start to seek validation from their children rather than, so that's what happens when you're unhealed. And she started to ask these questions, and she was like, what do you mean, like you like the hair before? And so the son said, because he was very sensitive emotionally, he was saying that no, I like your hair both, like long and short, but long was better, like like I liked it better. That's what he said. But then mom was like, all of a sudden, what's the word? very sultry. She's like, huh, like in Korean word, has said something that was like when someone is like not happy and angry and huh, and then she was like, so you don't like my hair, like blah 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 blah, and the son was like suddenly mad because he picked up on the nuance of the change in tonality. And why are you getting mad at me all of a sudden when I spoke what I truly felt, or what I truly meant? I just said I like both your long hair and the short hair, but just because I said it, you're now mad at me. And the mom didn't get it, and she wasn't concerned about her son's emotions and what she was doing to him. And the father's voice came, and then he was with his mom. The mom's disappointed now, and so the boy was upset because he just said what he needed to say, and all of a sudden, even though he complimented her and spoke the truth, what he was being returned with was criticism, was anger, was dislike, and all of a sudden feeling disappointed. And so everything was his fault now. You see what I mean? So that's the power struggle, or the duality structure that we play very commonly with parent-child dynamic or in relationship dynamic. They always ask this, like, do you like mom better or dad better? Do you like this better or that better? Like, this question creates a lot of confusion for kids. But they're seeking so much validation from their children. They don't know what this is doing to their children, how it's conditioning. So this boy is holding so much frustration. In one other video, he just got frustrated, and now he's expressing irritation whenever he doesn't like something. He cannot say it, but only thing that he expresses is anger and irritation. And he doesn't like his clothes, and so he starts to get irritated instead of communicating. You see? So that's how we learn these conditionings and this duality structure. And this little kid is accumulating all this, or being handed down the trauma. Because from the age up, since you were born, up to age 7, your brain is like a sponge. The kid's brain waves are in a theta brainwave. I think it's theta brainwave stage or something like that. So they absorb everything, and that's how they learn very quickly. And so instead of expressing or communicating how he feels or asserting that, because he never felt safe to express, and then he experienced that whenever he did, he was being the one who created the problem. He was the problem, he became the problem, and everything was his fault. So he learned to please, he learned to perform, he learned to and the mom is like labeling him as difficult and sensitive whenever he's doing that. And he changed his clothes to more like sporty clothes rather than like how the mom wanted him to dress in a certain way. And now he was happy. And then the comment on the mom, from the mom, was like, oh, he's like blah blah blah, he's like basically too much and weird or something like that. And nobody saw anything wrong with that. That's how we are carrying out these conditionings or toxic patterns without, or how it's been normalized. because you can't see it, you can't recognize it. I don't know why I'm sharing this particularly, but whatever, I'm going to share whatever that's coming. So that's like one thing. And another one was like, this is also very common. The mom, so the daughter was like 48 months, and she was eating the ice cream, and then the mom said, oh, let me have a little bite. And the girl was like, you know, she was not hesitating. She's like, yeah, because like she was very willing to share. And then she wanted to, like, her mom wanted to get her reaction. So this is something that a lot of Korean parents do on their video when they're filming their children. There are certain things that they do to draw a certain reaction out of their kids or babies, which is not very healthy, but they don't know that. And it's kind of trendy, so they just follow it. So, but instead of getting a little bite and then returning, she like ate the whole thing, or like huge amount, and left a little. And then she was shocked. So in that little incident, what she learns is she cannot trust her mom. She doesn't feel safe on a subconscious level. So whenever she like someone asks to ask her to share something, she's going to hold it in. You see what I mean? So even though it seems very trivial, it seems very harmless, it seems very entertaining, and it's very once again normalized, these things have been handed down from one generation to the next. And what they do is they lie. They deceive the child. Usually what they do afterwards is like, oh, I'm sorry, I ate the whole thing. And they want the reaction from the kid saying, no, it's okay. Another validation. So if the kid is doing that, oh, she's a good daughter and you raised her well, like these are the people, like what people are saying, and you know, like all these things still going on very heavily without much awareness at all. That's why it keeps repeating and being handed down, all these energies. Or sometimes they like to make they want to see their babies or child react and cry because they think it's cute. They do these things. Yeah, it's coming up for some reason. So all these things are creating constant acting as an agent to constantly keep the vibration low on earth. Basically, but people are doing it without realizing. So that's why the importance of opening up your third eye, or waking up, or the awareness once again is playing a very heavy role at this time. So I just want to ask, is there any relation to extraterrestrial disclosure with this? Okay, so that's the level of consciousness that so-called humanity is in right now on Earth. Okay, so another one that they want me to share was this father was all of a sudden punishing the boy, and he called it disciplining his son, because his son seemed like preschool once again, and he didn't live up to his words, and his dad wanted to teach him that you have to be responsible, you have to follow through and make sure that when you make promises, you have to deliver. But the thing is, he just punished without explaining, without giving him another chance or educating on him, without getting angry. His tone and manner was very angry and frustrated, and it threatens the kid. But he doesn't know that. He thinks that he's doing it well. He thinks that he's educating his son. He thinks that he's disciplining his child. And he's raising a good person. And everyone's like, oh, you're such a good father, blah, 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 right? It's probably validating him as well. And so the child was crying like crazy, and he was standing, and I told you, you have to follow through, blah, 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 blah. And this is like preschool kid, like little child. And he's asking him to be perfect in that moment. And also at the same time, he's not educating him or communicating with him, but he's expressing his anger. Even though he says it, he is reacting to what he did. So he needs to go in and he needs to reflect on himself. Why he's reacting to his son, not following through. Because probably he's been taught that from his father or someone else as a little kid. That's how he was brought up. And he couldn't tolerate it. You see what I mean? So he was reacting to his son's behavior. But in order to educate him, you have to stay non-reactive, to stay neutral, to be able to communicate from a neutral standpoint without judging or without going to this or that. He cannot compose himself. He was doing that, and then he thinks he's doing the right thing and it's going to do good for him. And now he's looking at the wall. He probably learned it from somewhere. He read something to discipline a child or something like that. And then he's raising his arm because he's being punished. That's what they do until the arm hurts, physical pain they're experiencing. And they're looking at a wall so they can, its intention is to make the child reflect on what he did wrong. You see what I mean? So even before he got educated, he's just being punished right away of his wrongdoing. And he doesn't know even why. And then he starts to think that it's his fault. So his dad was, after that, he came, and then dad was saying, I'm scolding you, but it doesn't mean I don't like you. But he's conflicting himself. His words and his behavior is not in alignment. So of course he has a lot of love for him, but this is not for me to this is right or wrong, but just as what is going on in the world, as the patterns that we may not be aware, or that we normalize, or even teach others that is how to discipline and how to do this and how to do that, which is handed down from trauma to trauma, or based on the duality, structural conditioning or controlling. So the child was crying like crazy, and then the dad said, after that he came back, and that doesn't mean I don't like you, but you gotta stay disciplined, and you gotta learn to be responsible, and blah 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 and blah blah blah. So what the kids learn basically is that he's learning not to do out of fear. He's being controlled rather than educated, and so he can decide for himself. So on a subconscious level, he's going to not do it because he remembers how horrible it was, how terrifying it was back then, or how traumatizing it was. In order for him to not experience that once again, that pain, he's going to try to avoid it. So he's going to take the action that the dead likes, basically. So he's not choosing for himself, he's learning to please or conform, like in that sense. So that's like the pattern that we don't even recognize. So that's another level of consciousness that we are in. We are heavily in punishment reward structure. Very, very, very extremely heavy. Everywhere I go, I witnessed, I grew up with it. My dad threatened all the time, screamed, get out of the house every day, basically whenever he was reactive, angry. Outside, he was a gentle, nice person. Inside home, completely different. Also, what came to me was a lot of these the painful history of women that I didn't even know. The past week, I kept receiving these messages. I didn't know that like in Europe, 1800s, especially like some like the Duchess of blah blah blah, like in the royal families and stuff like that. And it's not just, I believe is the royal family thing, but a lot of women, they gave birth to like 24 children or 27 children since they got married. So they usually get married around 16, 17 back then. So every year she got pregnant, and sometimes they were forced to get pregnant and bear a child for whatever reasons. And so there was like the story of one of the duchess or the princess or of something, or in one of the European countries. She lost all her teeth by the time she was 30 because she was giving birth every year since she was 16. And then another one was the woman who turned to like ruthless, one of the first female queen or something of, I don't know, England or something like that. I can't remember the country. Or she was like treated horribly, and then she started to just kill everyone. She killed one of her sons who was threatening her. She became a threat to her position of power, and she threatened another son to, so she executed him or something like that. So everything or everyone that looked like or became a threat to her, she just killed them all. She became ruthless, heartless, and at the end of the day, she got the throne. She became the queen, but she was not loved, respected, of course, but threatened by everyone. So that's how she became the queen, controlling everybody with fear. And I've witnessed this when I was in the corporate world, wherever I was, ever since I was, little. I would just observe. Even when I was like 6, 7, I would observe my mom's conversation with her friends whenever they were in our house. And they were talking, I would be like, why are they saying these things? And why are they lying to each other? And why are they pretending blah blah? Because I would see that. But I was just very curious, like, why do they do that? They had their reasons, you know. So that's why I was like, early age, I was always curious. I was always observing. And I remember like one time I looked at my grandma. She was carried a lot of toxic traits, of course, because how my dad was brought up and how he became to be that. Um, Whenever she came to our house, she would stay in our house for about a month with my grandpa because they were like in the countryside and stuff like that. And then she would call all the other uncles and aunts, and that was the first thing that she did. And my mom didn't like that because she's like bringing everybody without her permission to our house. Everyone's coming, like all of a sudden she needs to cook for them and serve them, and basically, so there was like a really karmic relationship, karmic connections, karmic dynamic between my mom and my father's mother, that my grandma, that side. So there was a lot of conflict, and I witnessed everything. And I remember one time, like I just watched her, and she probably didn't care because I was very little. And then she was saying all these things to make them come. She was pretending, oh, I'm not well, or blah blah blah, and like blah, blah, blah. And then to another family she called, and then blah blah blah. She would say this. She was very good at manipulating, like verbally. She was, and I would always tell my mom, you know, like grandma, if she was born right now, she would go to Harvard, or she would be like really really intelligent, because like that's how clever like she was, like with her like mental games. And my dad was like that too, very smart and very good at school and his job, and but you know, like personally he carried a lot of trauma that he didn't face, and a lot of shadow that he didn't face, right? So she was saying all these different things, lying, basically deceiving, creating stories out of thin air, and then make them come. That was her goal. And she was not only doing that to her children, to everyone else. And later I realized that's what my dad was doing too. So when you're not around, he would say things and create stories and do these things. But when you're with them, you have no idea. So I remember, like, that was when I was in elementary school, like, I don't know, maybe 3rd grade or 4th grade or something like that. I was like, why is she saying all these things? And why is it? And then that memory came back. Maybe like 10 years ago, all of a sudden, that's why she was doing this. And she was also manipulating her son, who was my father. And then they had that relationship, and he also learned that from my grandma, who was doing that also, blah blah blah. So basically, a lot of the energy of deception, manipulation, competition. And why do people get jealous all the time, right? Hatred all the time, because they feel threatened. They see you as a threat whenever you rise up, whenever you do well. And they say, we are family, I'm your sister, I'm your brother, I love you to the moon and back. But when you do well, when you start to rise up, whatever, do what is best for you, you're happy, you're living well, they're not happy for you. That's just a lot of the energies that is very common, very heavy on earth at this time. It's undeniable. That's why people talk about this all the time, and people suffer. People hurt each other with this. Recently, one of the Korean singer who said something, who liked a post of someone because he's very religious. He's well known for that. Before, he used to get a lot of praise for that because he was a very devoted Christian, and he liked someone, or like someone's post in America, and that was associated with something that a lot of people didn't like politically, and he's being condemned, and people were throwing hate comments and like all these things, saying all these things because they're like anonymous. So he recently, just very recently, he was silent, but you know, the energy is very chaotic, so he's being reactive. He can't stand, he can't tolerate it anymore, so he's also being reactive, and so he's taking like legal actions, and now he's taking that to like even to the US to make reveal 10 people who left that comments, who damaged him psychologically, like in a really deep way. He said that he's not going to stand it anymore, so he's going to reveal their identity, and he's in the process of that legal process and stuff like this. So all this kind of chaos based, like for example, something of that nature. So all of these things are coming up to the surface like crazy because the energy, like I shared in the previous videos, no longer can hold that old structure anymore. The new age, the new time has come. We are under dominant fire, air energies. So, especially with this celestial structure, or the support that we are having, I believe on the 20th or something like that of July this month. It's going to, the word that is coming is it's going to initiate a lot of other structural fall off is the word that is coming, is going to come on every level, because basically every organization, every company, everything holds a lot of corruption that we don't know about, that a lot of people have witnessed but we never really share, right? I witnessed all these things when I was in the corporate world, in different organizations, different companies, and basically I worked at one of the British bank, who are basically one of the major global banks around the world. Everybody knows this bank. And when I was in it, we were having all this compliance and all this like audits and what is it? Money laundering and blah blah blah. But they were doing money laundering. Basically. That's the truth. The major banks, the private equity companies, there's just a lot of, when we go down to it, top law firms, everything. So for some reason, like about a week ago or 2 weeks ago, all of a sudden, this theory that I learned when I was in graduate school, when I did my graduate studies in London. So I was working at a bank, and before that, so I changed jobs a lot, like 2 years, 1 year, like stuff like that. The longest was 4 years at another company, and the I remember before I studied, after like when I was about to graduate university, I was like, I want to study art, I want to do art, but I had no idea because I had a business degree. Nobody in my family was artists, and nobody, like cared that much about becoming an art. Like, I didn't grow up with that, but I always loved art, and I had this, like, I don't know, like some sort of unknown craving, I guess, for creativity and innovation and stuff like that, like, or more self-expression. So I really wanted to like study art, like do art or something like that, but I had no money, I had nothing, and I know that my parents wouldn't support me because they never really, like, monetarily. I looked like I grew up in a very well-to-do family because my dad had a very respectable job in society. We lived, I didn't live in poverty. Like, it's not like I didn't have my own house or we had to move house all the time, but inside the structure, I lived in poverty consciousness, like, really heavily. My dad grew up very poor, and he became very controlling, so nobody knew how much he made money. Like, nobody knew, even my mom. He held the control of everything, in, like, just without disclosing nothing. And I remember I never really received any, like, pocket money, like, or regular money for me to spend. It was that I always needed to save, whenever, like, our relatives come, and in Korea they usually give little children money for them to buy snacks or something like that. I would always save it because I had to save it for my rainy days. Sometimes I will get maybe, like, just like, I have to always ask for their permission, and they'll always say no, and like, under extreme, like, control and oppressive environment like that. So I grew up in that environment, even though I was educated well, and stuff like that. So for me at the time, even though I had that urge, it was impossible. And then I started to work a few years, and then I was like, I don't want to regret. That was one thing that I decided when I was in university. I took my very first psychology class, and then it just gave me a big impression that the most depressing age group was the elderly, and it's because they tend to look back on their lives when they're weaker, and, like, they're less mobile and have less energy, and they tend to get very depressed because they look back and they become very regretful of their life, of certain things that they didn't do, and blah blah blah. So it just made a really huge impression on me. So I decided that I'm going to live a life that I don't want to regret when I die. So, like, that became kind of a huge turning point for me after taking that psychology class. So I started, after experiencing like the corporate world, I was like, I'm getting older and I don't want to regret, and I want to try everything. At the time, I was very much, it was part of my purpose. I was like very obsessively in search, like soul searching, so called. Like, what's my path in life? What's my purpose in life? And there was a big question for me. Like, I would always ask questions and I would read a lot of books in order to figure out, and read other people's stories, and in order to gain wisdom from that, to have an answer and stuff like that. It was basically, I needed to get to know myself, and I wanted to get myself to experience a lot of different things. So I was like, okay, before I get older, I don't want to regret. So I want to prepare myself, at least get admissions, and then in a position where I can choose whether to pursue like graduate studies or do something in relation to art or not. So I remember, I don't know what got into me. I was like thinking that in that moment, I thought to myself, if I do whatever that I love, at the end, everything's going to work out. Like, that was something that I just received. Like, suddenly I thought of that. And then that desire was so strong. It was all part of the soul purpose. That's why it wouldn't go away. So I didn't have any money, but then I was working at the time, so I started to save a little and then put all that money to go to this art portfolio school where I wanted to also have the experience to live abroad on my own for the first time. So that was like very like big on me. I wanted to see whether I could do it or not. And so I saved up my money, and then every month, like most some big chunk of my salary go into that art portfolio class. That's mostly for like a lot of high school kids, or like the art major from university who wants to get into like top art schools in US or UK, mostly English speaking countries like that, Europe, and making portfolio for that. And these schools are very expensive, and these art institutions who help them prepare are very expensive as well. But I thought, if I don't try, I'm gonna regret. So I don't know what had in me, but because it was part of my soul purpose, and I had the soul contract, I believe. So at the time, I really trusted my intuition. So I went and I started to draw things, and that was also waking something up within me as well. I just felt like suddenly I wanted to study trees all the time. I just started to draw trees because I needed to connect with trees. And since then, I started to see like the energy around trees, because I was looking at it all the time, observing and trying to draw. I was drawing all the time. Like, I was never really good at drawing, like technically, but I was more like, I want to express like, like abstract art or something of that nature. So we were doing a lot of different things, preparing the portfolio, and one of my, so the teacher who was mainly helping me, it turned out that she was an art major, and she did her graduate studies, and I believe, yeah, graduate studies, and also undergraduate in US and UK. And she did her like graduate studies in UK, in London, in one of our schools. And then we were talking, and she knew a little bit about me, and all of a sudden she said, I think you would be really good at curating. And at that time I didn't know what curating was, and I started to search for it, and I looked up some schools where I can do curating or learn curating. It really interested me, because by then I would go to a lot of museums, or I love going to galleries and art exhibitions. Just it was like kind of how can I say, like passageway to understand the depth of life and death and energy and stuff like that in my own ways at the time. So I remember, like, during my lunch break, instead of eating out, I would go to an exhibition nearby, because my office was in the city center. There were a lot of exhibitions around, so I was always like that in the art scene. And I just started to read on artists and their techniques and stuff like that, and art histories. So I was like, oh, this really is something that would suit me. At the time I was kind of considering like interior design or something of that nature, but yeah, it really interested me, like curatorial practice. So I ended up preparing and applying for 2 schools. One in contemporary art studies, that drew my attention, because all the other schools usually had like art history and stuff like that, but this was like very much focused on contemporary art, and I was very interested in that. So that was one school, and the other one was like fashion school, because I was always into fashion, and when I was young I wanted to be a fashion designer or stylist or something like that, like makeup artist, and everything was of my interest. And so I applied to fashion merchandising, because I don't think that I could do like fashion design, but something in the fashion industry. So I got into both schools, but at the time I had no idea how I would get the money. Like, I know about into it, but it was just me. I was just full focused on, I don't want to regret, even though I don't get to go to the school, like I will not regret, because I tried. I gave myself a chance. So that was what I had in mind at the time, and somehow everything worked out, because I was contracted to go to London and stay there for a bit. So I ended up choosing. So at the time, the bank I was in, they were going through like huge merger and acquisition, so-called M&A. And in Korean law, you cannot fire employees, because it's more like based from, because we the Korean people experience a lot of wars, especially Japanese occupation for a long time, and then Korean War. So job security, stability was very important. And so still to this day, I believe you cannot fire once the employee is has a permanent contract. So I don't know why they had me share a lot of my personal stories, but I think that's how it's gonna be from now. So I'm going to share a lot of these things. And then all of a sudden M&A was going on, all the news was going on, and then people were wondering because they cannot fire people. What they do is they prepare a like compensation package if you choose to leave the company. So you get a lump sum suddenly, but that's based on like there's a calculation that how many years you were working and the position and all of that, and you put into the calculation and it gives you the amount of compensation if you choose to voluntarily leave the company, because they cannot make them leave, or basically fire people. So like it was on the top discussion. People were like speculating, is it really going to happen? And but the top management, they wouldn't reveal until a certain period of time, right? So that was like going on, and that was around the time I received the admission. So but something also happened while I was working there. There was a lot of, I was basically enslaved working long hours, paid low, underpaid, and then my boss at the time was really horrible, and she basically all tried to throw me out under the bus basically and do something illegal to make me quit before she knew everything about the plan of that compensation package. But just like a week before, she set me down and she encouraged me to leave, because I was like performing not so good, and she wanted to like blah blah blah, and I knew that it was not legal. So I got so mad. So I took this to the head of the team, the head of the whole department, who I knew that I could trust. He was at least just and fair in that sense. And I knew that this, what she was doing was illegal, but I was like, what the fuck? I couldn't believe that she was doing it after she made me do all the work and stuff like that, because she wanted to reduce. Basically, she was working on creating that formula for the compensation package. Yeah, everything was like kind of like a lot of other drama. And I experienced a lot of these things throughout, and that one was something. And I reported that to the head, and then he called it out, and then she couldn't do it because it's not legal. So I ended up receiving the package, and I ended up choosing to leave the company, and that was just in time, like just before I was about to, the school was about to started a few months before everything happened, but of just a week before that. So there was like a lot of distraction constantly. So that's how I was able to receive the money to go to London, pay for my living, pay for my school, everything. So I spent it all basically on my education. But for some reason, I don't know why, but at the time I was like, okay, I can work again and I can you know, when I come back, or at the time I wanted to stay in London, but it didn't work out because I was not meant to be there. I was meant to come back to Korea. So something of that nature. So it's like, but then my parents made it look like they pay for my tuition. They didn't. I paid for my tuition, or that package paid for my tuition, but they made it look like they were sending me money, or they were, but they didn't. But that's how they wanted to be perceived by other relatives or people around. They didn't like outright tell them lies, but they kind of acted as if they did, made people assume they did. It's like I found out about it like many years later. So I kind of like, okay, like that's what they're doing when I'm not around. So you just learn about the truth, basically, more and more, discover the truth, and you have to face it. And there's a lot of emotions involved. You have to deal with that as well. So why did I go to this? I can't even remember. For some reason, Source and Gaia want me to share the story, so I'm sharing it. I don't know why. I cannot. I just forget what I talked before when I'm doing these videos. I just talk in the moment. So I don't know, but they want me to share the story. So I'm sharing. So if you're resonating, I hope it helps someone. So okay, about the women in the history. Going back to that, so they had me like, there were like, not just in China, there was a term like in the 1800s, child-in-law or child something. So basically what happens is when your daughter is around like 5 or 6, the parents make a contract to another family that they will marry, that her daughter will marry the son of this other family, but they're only like, she's only 5 or 6, and then they will send the child to the family who's going to have the son who's going to be the husband of their daughter, basically. So they raise the child, in the daughter is being raised by her future husband's family, basically. But that's what they called. But what they were actually doing was, usually these families were very poor, so they sold their child, their daughter especially, and when they're sent off, they're not just raised, but they're becoming a laborer, so like they're enslaved. So from that age on, they're doing labor around the house, and they get married at like 13, 14 or something like that, and you know, stuff like that. So and when they make these contracts, the daughter's family or the parents get the money. So that was a very common practice. And in Europe, they used to sell their daughters to a wealthy family as a courtesan, so like child sex labor. That was what it was called. I never knew about this. So that's where it came from, like pedophiles and all this stuff. It started very early in Europe. And I don't know about like the dynamics in Asia. Maybe there were some, like they were married at 13, 14, and maybe to a husband who was like 20 years older, or it was very common, right? Because they were wealthy or even like older. And in Korea, I'm sure like there was something of this nature, and all this, basically all throughout history in different countries and civilizations and cultures. It was full of, marriage was a contract, it was a business deal between families, and a lot of parents sold their children away for the money. And so the amount of trauma, imagine getting pregnant every year, and if you're a woman you will know, after giving birth and getting pregnant again, it's not good for you. Your body is not ready. So that's why this woman that they had me learn about, she lost all her tooth by the time she was 30. I understand. And she, suddenly look a lot older than her age or something like that. So throughout history, women went through a lot, not just this, and a lot of sexual harassments that's related to sacral chakra. Once again, it doesn't matter whether you're female or male in this lifetime or in that lifetime. Basically what came was every single individual you at least once experienced. That's how it was, sexual harassment of any sort. So the blockage is humongous of the sacral energy, because once that sacral energy opens, it's full of creativity, it's full of feminine power, it's full of all this, and they needed to block it. So they, meaning like age of darkness experimentation, or the authoritarian structures or powers. So even though it looks like we are much advanced in a lot of so-called civilized, the deeply rooted subconscious mentality or the level of consciousness is still not very advanced or has not been evolved. So that's the whole point that they want me to share. What's going on in all these family dynamics, from mine to all these children that I watch and they have me observe, that I can also relate to because I went through it as well without realizing what it was back then, but now I can see very clearly of the little details and subtleties of what's going on, right? And how it's impacting the frequency of the humanity or the collective. And this is also affecting other parallel timelines as well, and that's why they have me mention the Kennedy timeline and the extraterrestrial. So it's all interconnected, and whenever I go to all these different places, I would say I have this ability to just tap into other timelines that's simultaneously existing. Right now here, I'm constantly, this area is very, very old. It hasn't, the river here has been here for ages, and the trees around. And whenever I connect, like with my third eye, go back to the 1600s, the people's energies. I'm tapping into what's going on around that time. Everywhere I went, it was like that. The heaviest, and they usually had me go into the underworld, really darkest energies, especially when I was in Bondi in Australia. I started to see how the Bondi Beach was like in the 1800s. And I didn't know the history, I didn't know nothing. And just before I was about to leave Bondi, about a few days before, suddenly I felt called to go to this building, and there was whole photos of that period, 1800s and 1900s. And that was exactly what I was seeing in my third eye. And I was like, oh, okay, so that was like kind of, for me, confirmation of what I was tapping into. And so here, a lot of suicides that took place in this river. A lot of people throwing themselves into this body of river for hundreds of years. So many ghosts around throughout Japan, especially because I share this, and Japan holds the energy of water and a little bit of fire. And so especially when someone holds that a lot of air and water energy, when it's not in balance or lacking in other elements, in that 8 pillar, like Chinese reading, it's a fire and water, they collide like elementally, like in that reading. So it's also tied to like feng shui. So basic feng shui is that everything like chi, or the energy, needs to flow. And so if the ceiling's too high, like people think the high ceiling like is more expensive house. So feng shui wise, after a certain height, if it's too high, the chi is like stuck there, it cannot circulate, so it's bad for. So there's like all these things that I, even before I had this awakening in 2018, I was like interested in these things. So I would read books on it, and I would just study intuitively. And then, you know, like in the kitchen, usually if you have a refrigerator or the stove, in feng shui, you have bad chi or bad flow of energy when they're looking at each other like this. So how they structure the house is that they're not facing each other, they're like in a different position. So that's how, you know, it's all like how the energy can flow. But that's also tied to how the building structures were in Golden Atlantis. So we are to incorporate more of these things in harmony, the energy flow of the nature. So here is very water dominant, and then a little bit of fire. So a lot of people hold, you know, also emotional repression and suppression here. And due to that, people don't express, they can't say it because their throat is so blocked, but they will show through irritation, frustration, and then even that has been repressed. So they just go crazy, become weird, psychotic, and then they do weird things. So like, for instance, there were like, I don't know, like in 2000s or something like that, there were a lot of news where just people who were so stressed and just went crazy, they would just, on the subways, you know, people going up, and then they would go down and then push people and then kill people like that. And they would do like stuff. It's kind of weird behaviors, but it's all has a reasons behind all these patterns. and the energy in this area also has an effect on it. And a lot of like still like host bars, so called, a lot of sex bars, like just walking down the street, it's very like normal to see. I saw like this woman, like young woman, holding a like kind of a sign with Japanese words on. I don't know what that means, but I looked at it and then I could see that it was like a host bar or something like that, and it's just part of everyday culture here. And it has become a Japanese culture nowadays, so called. Because if a person has a lot of the water energy, water also has a yin and yang. It separates between yin and yang. So yin is more represented as like a stream of water. Yang water is more as a deep ocean water. So if someone has that deep ocean water in their chart, or a lot of them, usually they don't say, they're not big on chatting. They tend to be very solemn, quiet, calm, looking collective, but inside they may have a lot of depth. Once they speak, you know, something like that. But if they also have fire in the chart, like, or hidden inside, they may have a lot of passion, but they may look more collected and calm and cool, you know, stuff like that. That's how they read the chart. So that energy is very heavy in Japan. So when these things collide without aligning or harmonizing, it can create a lot of psychosis, basically, and psychological warfare, or depression. So I saw that I understand that's how it was contributing in creating these cultures and the way they people, and how it's the developments and stuff like that here. So it's quite interesting. I was never really into like Japanese history, but I'm learning a little bit as well. So imagine all these wandering souls. And so everything is so interconnected right now. Even if it seems irrelevant, everything is interconnected. Everything I'm sharing in this video is interconnected, is what they want me to emphasize so much right now. Source and Gaia is coming through, and they want me to, I don't know why they want me to emphasize it, because they want me to, they want me to emphasize that because what you do individually, what you're working on, what you're doing, it has more impact on the overall than you think, because we are all connected. We are all interconnected. And what we do on Earth also is affecting the other planetary systems in the universe. That's why Earth is very much under heavy surveillance at this time by the extraterrestrial since World War II. Okay, so they want, the reason why I kind of shared about how I went to like UK and study contemporary art was to mention about a week ago, all of a sudden I hear the word surveillance, and it had me connect to that time I was in London when I was doing my contemporary art studies. We did a lot of theories, and every day we had like discussions on theories and art and stuff like that, and that's why I was very drawn to that school and that major at the time. And I just loved doing it, because before, when I was working for a bit in the corporate world, ever since I was a teenager, my goal in my mind, I read a lot of books and I was like, I wanted to be an independent thinker. At the time, that was what I was thinking. And then I felt like I was becoming like a robot. I was so stressed out. I couldn't think. I had no desire to think. I had no desire to learn anything new, or even the things I used to love. I just had no desire to do any of that anymore. Just became, I don't know, I just went to that point and I was like, oh, I need to do something. So when I was in London, I used to enjoy that a lot. And then we did a lot of theories, and it was very challenging for me, especially my first semester, because I wasn't used to that archaic English language and all these theories and concepts. Especially after working in the corporate, my mind was very much like non-active. And then all of a sudden, this Michel Foucault, French, I don't know, is it archaeologist or theorist or something? We used to study a lot of his theories, and one of his theories that stood out to me was about his theories on surveillance, modern day surveillance. So I think he wrote it when in the 70s. Or 80s or something like that. I looked it up a little bit before, after I remembered him all of a sudden with the word surveillance that came to me. So basically his theory was that back in the 70s or like early 80s, as the technology is developing at the time, it was more like public video cameras. He kind of predicted the public video cameras are going to be very commonplace in future times, in the next 10 to 20 years or even more, and that people are under constant surveillance, and that's going to act as an agent for people to behave in a conform to behavior. Even though nobody's watching, that surveillance camera is going to act as a controller on a subconscious level, and people are going to behave on a subconscious level in a way to conform to societal whatever. So it was about like the control and surveillance and stuff like that. So when I was reading that for the first time and studying it, I was like, oh, very interesting, like back then. And so now it's very commonplace. It's even more so now. But it was talking about, the message was about conformity right now, which is very heavy, because we need to get out of the energy in order to move on to sovereignty. And so that kind of also connected me with the energies and information, and I was connecting when I was in China, and I shared in my recent video that the China's structure was very interesting as I was experiencing it and tapping into it. It's very centralized. When you conform, you're guaranteed like safety, at least. You can live a comfortable life for now, at least. But it could change or switch up overnight because it's a centralized power. Extremely centralized. Every little system has been built for the past 20 years to support this centralized power. And amount of consumption of resources is tremendous. Everything looks very highly developed, high skyscrapers, modern looking buildings, and everything modernized. everything electricityfied, basically. So I don't know how much solar power they're utilizing, but everything is electricity. Cars, bicycles, like even toilet papers, and it's automatic touch, and then boom boom, you know, like, I don't know, I was just wondering about the consumption of energy. There's so much, and they're exploiting North Korea very heavily. They're exploiting South America, especially Colombia. I immediately noticed the relationship between Colombia and China and their strategic alliance. So that's going to also Africa as well. They've been doing that. And still to this day, these things that we think that it's unbelievable is still going on in North Korea. Still, there's public execution happening in order to use fear to control people. So whenever they grow up seeing this, they know this place is for the public execution. They widely broadcast it. They make all these people from South Korea who moved to North Korea and how horrible South Korea is, and they propaganda. Still to this day, they had me see suddenly all these videos from this woman who looked like she's in her 20s, 26, 27. I think she was part of the entertainment group. They pick certain women who look good and blah blah blah, and then they have this like department or group or entertainment groups, and then she was sent to like was it Vietnam or something like that, in one of the Southeast Asian countries. So that's where she was exposed to culture or learned about South Korea. And then she said she could never go back to North Korea again or go back to that living when she knew. So that's how freedom is. So she decided to escape, and then she did something and she succeeded, and she's now in South Korea. And she's doing all the like the girl things, and on her social media and stuff, dancing videos and stuff like that, doing makeup, and you know, she's just a regular person, but under like she's just recently started to share all these stories of her life in North Korea, because people were having a lot of questions. And it was just horrible, like, you know, it's still going on. And also suddenly my spirit team source in Gaia had me learn about what's going on in Middle East. In 2024, this female, well-known, popular female singer in Saudi Arabia or something, was it Iran or Saudi Arabia? I can't remember. She had a concert singing like traditional that Arabic song, and she did it without her, what is it, hijab? We say hijab, like the female, like they have to wear this long gown hiding their hair and only showing a parts of her face, and she didn't wear that. I guess she was sort of like her protest, and then she got arrested, and she was announced with 72 or 60 something, what is it called, like slays or something like that, like you get hit by like 72 times. Like it was very common way of punishment in a lot of countries. I know in China and in Korea, usually when you get hit like that all over the body, you get crippled or you either die or get crippled. So that was like one of the worst punishments back in the days. But this was very common. You get hit like 20 times, or you get like with what is it called? You know, like so with something else. And this is 2024. This was 2024, and nobody knows where she is and how she is now in 2026. So the human rights, international human rights organization is trying to help her out after receiving that news and stuff like that. So that was information that I received, so that I never knew until then. So this is still very much going on. This is still very much the energy that we are living in. And as I'm saying this right now, suddenly I'm getting all emotional. This is even making me cry right now. Oh. Because Gaia's energy is coming through. Wow, amount of pain the individuals went through. Amount of I'm feeling it all of a sudden in my heart center. Ooh. It's like this is happening like every one of the videos recently. I'm tapping into their energies. Just makes me cry because I feel their pain in my heart center. But this is not just for, you know, you could be a male, but you could have been a female living in that period of time or in that culture experiencing this. So it's not about like gender, but just the overall pain, like the feminine pain. The amount of repression and oppression and the physical pain and trauma. The Gaia is having me experience emotionally for me to share this with people. And what I'm getting is we all carry this in our physical vessel at this time is what is coming. Every single individual on a cellular level. Because this is a collective trauma and we're all connected. And we've been handed down this trauma from one generation to the next in a different form, in different lives. So it's very important that you continue to heal your nervous system, cleanse your energy, restructure your cellular configuration is what is coming. Activate your DNA strands with that. Because if you feel this energy, you just know that everything is connected. Your pain is not just your pain. That's why people understand your pain and you understand other people's pain once you have been through it. And that's why one of my purposes in this lifetime, I chose to be in all kinds of karmic connections, carry all this physical symptoms and pain throughout my entire life. Unknown symptoms, extreme symptoms, constant pain, emotional, physical, mental, everything. And in this lifetime, I chose to do that, particularly because it was all part of my contract and I came as a volunteer. So I vividly remember so that I could help people out. So for example, like physically, I carried all these symptoms ever since my bone structure was misaligned and all off, and I had to basically rebuild my body up as well. I didn't understand why I couldn't stand straight like this or sit like this without feeling the pain, extreme pain in my body up until, I don't know, maybe 15 years ago. So that was how I lived all my life. And all the other pains. I couldn't move my arms, lift my arms up, like the right shoulder for 3 years, and then left arms. So I needed to release energies. And then at first I tried everything. I got like, I don't know, went to the doctors and I got shots and I took medicines and nothing worked. And I really thought that I was being crippled. I couldn't lift my arms, and I couldn't like continue my exercise, or even though I always enjoyed exercise, I was so tired all the time because I was carrying all this heavy karmic energies in my physical body. So I needed to release one by one, one by one, one by one, and they release it, and I had to experience it. So the connection between the physical illness or the symptoms or the pain is tied to the emotional and the karmic. And once you release it, it's like, it's gone. The pain is gone, like literally. So something of that nature. So suddenly that was coming through, and I was feeling that pain of that, all this like the feminine pain that the Gaia also holds as well, and she was sending me that for this message. So we need to remember the value of freedom, the value of sovereignty. But the thing is, we sabotage our own freedom without realizing, because we are so heavily conditioned and in duality consciousness that even though we are given freedom, we sabotage it. That's something that Source and Gaia wanted me to share as well. So that's why it's very important to look at all these patterns and all this seemingly trivial little like things that people share, that laugh at, that think it's adorable, cute, with children, parent dynamics, and all these things that I'm sharing, that I'm noticing and sharing for awareness, is to be taken more seriously, is what is coming for me to share. And with that, you can have that awareness so that you can apply it to your inner child wounds, or your patterning or relationship dynamics with your children if you have children, or even your pets, because they also have a certain relationship with you, is what is coming for me to share. So you can clear them out. You can be the chain breaker or the cycle breaker. They also want me to share more of my stories from, little by little, more on. So that's why they have me share all this like stories, like all these long stories. It's all intertwined. Here, what I've been experiencing was a lot of people have been conditioned with heavy, rigid conformity under the name of unified forces. So as I was tapping in, what came was, it came from they have a native tribe here. This is like what I noticed here was interesting, because when I was in Korea, I thought that, you know, Japan was very similar to Korea, completely different, the culture wise and genetically. Also, the land itself, completely different energy, and this is an island. This is very tropical. Even though we look very similar, that's what I realized. The colors of the flowers, the soils, it's very like this is a big island, very tropical, more like Southeast Asian countries. So for me, it was very interesting. That's why they have different crops and different fruits and vegetables, and what as I was tapping in, this all came from that oneness. They had that concept with that native tribes here, and the energy and the nature is very abundant here. So the harmony with nature was very big. But then as the age of darkness experimentation got darker and darker in a way, in human language sense, right? More oppression, more centralized control, more, you know, all these things, abuse and toxicity. It shifted. The word that is coming is like shape shifted, more like that, into the concept of conformity, but they call it the uniformity, which I also shared in one of the previous recent videos. So they very heavily emphasized this. Here in Korea, I grew up with that as well, but in Japan they also had that concept, but it's been like twisted. So now they call it, they think it's the oneness, but they kind of, with the control, it became conformity. Extreme conformity, extreme rigidity. But the water is very fluid and flexible. But with this, the energy is not that flexible. It's extremely rigid. Everything's systematic. Everything is every little rules here. And that's why I experience a lot of people having extreme performative expressions here, always smiling and like, but then they change faces very quickly. It's like when they don't like something, and then they, yeah. So it's like a way to manipulate, but that's very common that I noticed here, the energy. They exert dominance using that softness and that aggression in a very interesting way, I would say. They look very submissive, but they're exerting dominance with a lot of that dark feminine, or more like manipulative feminine power in a way. More like passive aggressiveness, but it's not quite that, but it's very interesting. A little bit very sticky. Very sticky, not so pleasant, even nasty, but not so pleasant. It's very bitchy is what is coming, bitchy. They look very submissive, nice, complacent, feminine, pleasant, pleasing, but very bitchy. Meanness is what is coming. So that's why I understand as I was tapping in, because there's so much suppression and repression, bullying's everywhere, but especially in this culture and this energy. If you don't conform, you get bullied, the mean girl, and because you've been repressed, emotionally deprived of love, they express it in an aggressive manner, but you can't do it in a physically aggressive, more like feminine. Yeah, it's like a mean girl energy kind of. It was very interesting. I went to this cafe, a very local cafe, and it was dead quiet. Dead quiet. And then everybody's just doing their thing in their little like seats. That's everything's blocked like this, right? Separated. But that this guy just boom, like drops his glass like this. Or their behavior is very loud or aggressive, but they're very quiet. They don't say anything. And that's how they express aggression. Yeah, so it's in connection to a lot of the collective energy shift that we are going through. That's why they wanted me to come here and connect. And we can all relate to this energy because we experienced it, we lived through it in one lifetime or another. I can relate to it as well. What else? Is there anything else that you want me to share at this time? Source, Gaia. For some reason, Andromedans are here with me. They connected with me earlier today when I woke up. And they're coming through once again for me to give you this transmission to open up your heart. And something that you can do is the Andromedan energy is available, and then you can connect to that energy and open up your higher heart. Whatever that has been blocking your heart, any sadness, any sorrow, any emotional due to emotional repression, suppression, or experiences of oppression, harassment, abuse, toxicity, through these patternings and dynamics that you experience since you were a child and this other lifetimes as well. It's all been blocking our heart basically. So I'm just sending out these codes that's coming right now intuitively with the Andromedan. So if you are open to this, you'll receive these codes. It's going to work on its own if your energy is open. So you're the one giving permission, right? It's up to you. Ooh. 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 They're sending out these frequencies together through my throat chakra. So this is the, okay, so what is coming is, this is to help or support anyone that's coming to this or that's in contact with this video at this time or any divine time that they're coming across and resonating. Is for them to open up their heart so they can delve deeper into their emotional wounds that's stored in their heart chakra, that perhaps may be blocking their heart chakra in relation to all the topics that I talked about or touched upon in this video, in this particular video is what is coming. So whatever it is, you will resonate is what is coming. You will know through my stories, through all the other stories that divinely was given to me for me to connect and tap into. So you feel safe to open your heart up, to feel your emotions, all your sadness, all your emotions that was making you uncomfortable, that you've been hiding, you've been putting aside, you've been bypassing. You can tap into them safely, more with ease, so you can release them, process them, transform them, send it back to a source to be repurposed into light. And also, as you do so, your light body is going to expand, cleared. You're resuming your power within, remembering more of who you are. So, I don't know how long I was here. I feel like it's a pretty long time, but if you have been sticking to it till the end, I appreciate you. And I'm also appreciating myself for talking for so long. And yeah, I hope this helps. And with that, have a great day wherever you are, and I'll see you in my other videos. Bye. I need a break. Bye.